Welcome educators, welcome managers and supervisors, teachers and trainers. A lot of us educate others, a lot of us help others with their writing, and that's what this playlist is all about, how to help other people write well, how to bring a writing component into the training you already do, or how to create a new writing unit. So we're looking at all things teaching writing. Today's video is one of two where we talk about how do you decide on your learning objectives. The first video, if you missed it, here's a link, talked about this new playlist and what we're going to cover. If you're a new teacher or if you're a trainer who wants to bring writing into the professional development offerings, that's what we're talking about here. And today we're looking at what do learners need most in a writing classroom, mostly in the workplace for professional writing. We'll start talking about learning objectives and finish that up next week with how to write them. But for now, I want to look at three areas. Last time we mentioned, hey, take a moment to think about your learners. What do you observe? What kind of writing do they do? Where are they at with that writing and where do they need to be? And what's the gap in between? So that when we think about where our writers are at, that'll help us get our first sets of learning objectives. So we'll talk about that number one, but then I want to get into what I would advise, two sets of things to talk about to formulate your curriculum and your learning objectives based on writing towards goals, which people don't always think about. So something new to bring up, and how thinking about our reader can help us make decisions. So three things that can lead us into the learning objectives for a writing curriculum, whether it's in a traditional classroom or in the workplace, like I often teach in now. First set of learning objectives are going to come from what you've observed. Who are your writers writing to? What are they writing about? What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? And what do their readers look for? For example, I might study a group of people I'm teaching and say, well, my learners write largely to their supervisors, and those supervisors are looking for clarity in a brief way. That's already leading me to think, yeah, I'm going to need to include concision, writing concisely, as a learning objective. So make sure you've thought a little bit about what do your learners need in order to make their readers happy, but that they're not quite doing yet. And that's based on your own observations. I think, though, that in all professional development settings, a writing classroom would want to include learning objectives talking about how there are actually two types of goals of the writing that we do at work or in our interpersonal lives. A little different than school writing, where we were mostly being informative or persuasive and getting marked for our writing. Now, when people are writing at work, we do need to tell them, hey, you usually have two simultaneous sets of goals when you write. Yeah, you're trying to inform somebody, you're trying to be clear and concise and actionable, say when something's due, share the facts, but simultaneously, you're usually writing towards a relational goal as well. Something about tone, respect, trust. Yeah, I want to say my information, but how am I going to say it? How will I say it in a way that preserves the relationship between me and my reader, or maybe even strengthens it? Maybe even creates more motivation around the topic, or more confidence and a higher morale around the topic. So this is going to be something we'll want to work into any writing classroom, that awareness, you have two goals at once in a business writing setting, especially where we're communicating back and forth with that interactive side of writing that we don't always learn about in school. So a couple quick examples of that idea where we have two goals at the same time, and I've got the informative goals in blue and the relational goals in orange. We might want to write a message that says, yeah, I don't agree with that idea, or I don't even like that idea, but I like you. I still want to have trust with my reader even while I disagree. So it's a mix of the two goals when we write that message. Maybe you're a boss and you want to redirect an employee but not demotivate them. Maybe you're a boss and you want to praise someone, but make sure they still keep trying hard after that. Or tell people what to do, but in a respectful manner, right? So we have the two, and that's going to need to, we'll write them next week, but be part of your curriculum. Hey, learners, you're thinking about two things at once. It's hard to manage our writing correctly if we don't think about both sides. And so that's what we'll look at for that second area. So learning objectives will include ideas based on what you've observed about your learners, this concept of two simultaneous goals. And then lastly, number three, a great way to help people see The concept of making choices in our writing, making intentional choices, right? That's a really hard concept often, especially when we've spent time in school just trying to be correct. But now we actually have to make goals and meet our readers' needs. How are we going to do it? Well, one thing your learners need to know is that we can make most writing decisions based on answering these two questions. Who will read this? What am I trying to accomplish? We don't have to make our writing decisions in an empty void. We can make them with those ideas in mind. So based on who's going to read it, that helps me decide what to include or leave out, how detailed to be, or just the bottom line. What order should I put things in? What should I include? I don't have to make up the answer. I can figure it out by thinking about what my reader needs. Similarly, if I think about my goal, what I'm trying to accomplish, I can look at things like tone. I want to convey respect while I give this information, right? So that third learning objective will be talking to your learners about how analyzing your reader and your goal is how to make the best writing decisions to have the most impact on your reader. All right, so wrapping it all up, we're looking at 3 things so far, and next time we'll talk about how to write these learning objectives so they're measurable. That can be kind of tough, right? And we're looking at these 3 areas. What have you observed your learners needing? How can we share this idea with your learners about informational goals and relational goals in writing? And then lastly, that concept of making intentional decisions based on who will read this. All right, so let me know what your questions are and be thinking about your learners and what they need, because next week we'll start talking about how to actually write out the learning objectives and move towards creating the lesson plans and the curriculum for this program or unit or class. Thanks again for watching. I'm Erin, and I hope to see you soon.